everyone should live a dignified life. I learned from them how heavy it is to work 12, 16 hours. And they're like, oh my God, we got to do onions today. Onions that we are just like, ooh, chopping. Nice. People drag themselves along the line for hours to get those onions and to pack them into sacks. $5 an hour, $8 an hour. Things do change for the better. I have seen it. It took me years to believe it, that fighting for things or causes would actually change for the better. And I am living it right now.
That is Quique Escamilla. He is a singer and songwriter who I first learned about on Instagram after he made a viral post announcing that he was canceling his U.S. tour due to the ICE raids. After digging into his work, I learned that he has spent his career figuring out how art can preserve history, humanity, and fight for those who are ignored by society. If you're a creative and wonder if your work can really make a difference in this world, this is for you. This is the incredible Quique Escamilla. I found you on Instagram. There was a post that popped up in my feed of this traveling musician artist who made a declaration that he was canceling his tour in the United States because of what's going on with ICE. And I immediately hit the heart button on Instagram along with a lot of other people, a lot of comments, a lot of stuff thinking, wow, this dude in Canada is saying that he's canceling his tour because of what's going on in the USA with ICE. So I started following you just to try to see what you were up to in the world. And luckily for me, a few months later, I reached out to you because I wanted to hear a little bit more about your work, your art. And you said yes. What's important for us to understand about you and your worldview before we start dissecting what's going on in the world?
I think it'd be good to say that I was born and raised in southern Mexico, which is at the border of the historic Mayan land. It's the southern border of Mexico, just next to Guatemala. It's a border is shared with Guatemala. Why I say that? Because obviously it's a special place for me, not only because it's my hometown, but also as the history of the place. Even though I left almost 2 decades that I've been away, living, moving, traveling, still very special and dear to my heart because of the history. It's still, I'm really, really passionate about learning more about that history of that particular part of Mexico and the ancient culture. So
You've been a musician since you were a little boy. So what was it like playing music there growing up?
Yeah, so growing up in Chiapas was a great way for me to have has really helped me now in my mid 40s to develop a very broad perspective of life in general and societies. And coming to Toronto from Chiapas is basically as 8 kilometers is such a distant place from Chiapas to Toronto, and culturally, socially, economically, there's a huge gap between those two worlds. And being in Toronto obviously offers top of the line of our new world and new advances and new technologies. Those are great things to have in my life today, but at the same time, the more I age, the more I look back to the simple things that actually have gained a different value.
Yeah.
When I realized that not everything material is good. Not everything is needed in our life. So, and that plays a big role in my life as an artist, because it really helps me have a wide perspective of what really matters in this world, at least what matters in my life. And then from there on, I choose how I want to live my life, what things I want to have in my life, what things I don't need, either as material or trends or society's perspectives, desires. Then I shape up my own. And I'm quite, I would say, unconventional. I'm an unconventional sheep in society because I always tend to rebel a little bit of, not rebel for rebelling. I tend to rebel when I feel like, okay, well, have we even questioned why we're doing this as a society?
Mm.
Like, have we questioned ourselves why we're following patterns generations over generations? Within my state, we had issues with indigenous movements versus the federal government back then in the 90s. And you were in the middle. If you grew up in the city, you're like, who's right? Who has the right version of this issue right now? What should I believe? Because the media was telling you one thing, the local media was telling you one thing, the national media was saying one thing, and then you had the people, the movement telling you one thing that they're fighting for. And at that young age, I already had to apply my, my mind to say who's right. And since then, since that teenage, I've been obviously practicing that, questioning things. Why are we going this way? Why everybody's doing this thing?
You're saying that you grew up where there was, it sounds like, division in your country versus the indigenous folks and then also the government. So you kind of grew up understanding dualism and kind of questioning what is the truth here and the complexity of any nation, any country, and that there isn't always necessarily probably capital T truth. It's probably somewhere in the middle. That's at least what I'm hearing you say. Is that accurate?
Yes, actually, it's a very good point. Rethinking the whole equation of where I come from, that might be part of the nature that's
Yeah.
it's in me today and my middle age because I had to start gauging and observing everything and then adding it to a built picture of what the truth was.
Mm.
And at the same time, I guess without paying attention to it, I developed a way to acquire a discernment about like who's lying, what is the real truth according to facts that you're seeing, what people are saying, what people are doing versus what the media is. Media is evil stuff sometimes because I mean, not I don't believe in the all media is evil, but I'm saying
Right.
if they have capital interest, oftentimes we find media being biased for someone's benefit or an ideal or an agenda or political agenda. So then the media has an incredible power and it can be good, it can be neutral, biased, or it can be really like potentially harmful to a society, and we see it often and in every country. So in my small hometown, my first experience with using my common sense and discernment is the media saying one side, one version about our indigenous people in my hometown, and then they are painted as a guerrilla movement of lazy people. They are just looking for money and under the cover of looking for their rights, but it's actually you go and people writing the media in Mexico City have no idea, no clue of what it's really happening in Chiapas, where I'm living and I'm
Yeah.
part of the whole society there. So we see a different reality, and then you see what the media says and what the government at the time it was a right-wing government. How they were dealing with the issue of indigenous peoples, asking for their basic rights and protecting their land. That was the subject, and that's a whole chapter that we could talk about another time. It was well known around the world, the Zapatista movement, the EZLN, and it was just right there. I was in the state of Chiapas, so you get to see that reality, and then you're a teenager, and you start thinking about these big questions about why this division, why this social and class, and who's right. And you want to lean to one side and try to be the guy who is in power, or you lean with the guy who is the underdog trying to survive versus a big force and opposition that wants to oppress you. It's not that they allow you to exist. They want you to oppress you. That's my first encounter with this internal reality that I have to decide what's real here, where I'm in the middle of this conflict, because it was a real conflict. It was like a for the beginning of the '90s movement. It turned into a small civil war. It
Wow.
lasted a few days, well, not a few days, but I mean, the movement and the struggle is still going today, 30 years later. But the conflict was heavy. What I mean, the confrontations between the army with the indigenous movement, the confrontations were a war between the, the indigenous movement with the national army. And then it slowed down later. Things, there was what's the word? A truce, I guess. What's
True.
the word?
Yeah, treaty, maybe.
Treaty and some peace talks, and then the movement continued defending their land, and they're still defending autonomous land today that is protected, has been protected against international mining companies. And thinking about it today, I'm like, wow, if they hadn't done this 30 plus years ago, 32 years ago, when NAFTA, going back to the United States and Canada, when NAFTA opened up, that's when they actually started their movement to say, we're not open for business with our land. We're not joking. We're actually going to fight for it. And many people died, like in Chiapas, like indigenous people, young people were killed, with full army, like planes dropping bombs in the mountains, Chiapas. So it was serious. And here they are, 32 years later. Every January 1st, from 1994, every year they celebrate every year that they're progressing with protecting their land, protecting their heritage, protecting their languages that have been there for thousands of years, the Mayan languages in the Mayan mountains of Chiapas. So
Essentially, the indigenous people want to just preserve their land and their heritage and their culture, and the government's kind of coming in and just wanting to build businesses and like
mhm.
colonialize it, or what's going on there?
Yeah, that was what now it's not nothing new. Back then it was the beginning of under the name of progress, in an international treaty between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. That's when they launched NAFTA, 1994, and that was basically Mexico agreeing to open their doors to international companies moving to Mexico and doing business, only to benefit those international businesses or companies, mainly big companies coming to do mining extraction. And Mexico was agreeing to it. Mexico, the government, and we can call it now officially neoliberal government, saying, neoliberal ways to say, yeah, in the name of progress, we're gonna rent this land for other people to exploit it. We don't care if they pollute the water of the locals. We don't care if they displace the locals, if they use the resources, natural resources. We don't care. We're open for business. And then and the business that they did, because there was an exchange of money, obviously millions of dollars, it never benefited the locals. It's not like the government was being, okay, we're concessioning this land, and then we're going to put you in another place and give you the benefits of the concessioning of this land. No, it's like, we don't care about the people. So then that's when the movement, rightfully, I mean, any person in the right mind would say, hey, what is the benefit of you renting out my land? What is the benefit to my people that have been here for thousands of years?
Right.
Why is it I'm just going to walk away? Here's my land. No one in the United States or Canada with a right sense of mind would say, hey, you're going to take my land? Sure, no
Right.
problem.
Right.
Do whatever you want. And it's as simple as that. Here or in China or in Russia, anyone would defend their land if anyone is being
Right.
attacked or the land is being, threatened to be sold for business, international business, and you don't see any benefit of it. So that is the big issue in Chiapas. And then also not just the land itself, is your heritage,
Right.
millenary old heritage of your people, and you have a conscience of that. So it's like ethics tell you you can't just say, okay,
Yeah.
I stop being me. um, So that's basically the beginning of. Sorry, we're starting heavy, but that really shaped up my perspective, my views, and now I don't live in Chiapas. I live in Toronto, Canada, but I don't detach I mean, from those ideals and actually fighting for what's right, even though I don't fight with a weapon. Fortunately, I don't believe in needing that, but I think that it's important to for me to continue. Uh, it's a way of living to say that you see an injustice, and I don't call myself an activist or a freedom fighter necessarily. Um, but I think that as an artist, it's really shaped up my purpose as an artist. So coming to the arts and why you see my posts speaking about some facts and historical facts, truths that maybe some people haven't heard because they've been too distracted with so much going on in their lives, so much work, so much like so many bills to pay, so many things to look at that currently people don't have time to go and like, okay, let me look at the history, what happened in this land
Yeah.
where I have a home. Most
Yeah.
people don't even know what happened in their homeland called homeland 200 years ago. If it was English land, or if it was Spanish land, or if it was Mexican land,
Yeah.
like the case of California, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a truth, and no one can deny the facts. Music and art is important for me. The essence of being an artist is to actually convey a story that can have an impact in society, and not the whole society, perhaps it would be too much to ask, but at least in a few people. I believe that we have to see each other as a collective, in a global collective.
Amen.
So then I started to, my purpose in this years in my life is to use my voice, to use my art, to use my thoughts, my conscience, my intellect in a way that I can instill big dreams of equality.
At what point did you start to take it really seriously where you're like, this is what I'm going to do with my life? How old were you? And then what was like the first big move towards professionalism that you remember?
I started singing and dancing and being artistic in whatever I could, like
Yeah.
every opportunity in my elementary school. I I bugged my parents to. Well, I already signed up. I raised my hand already before I go home, and I asked my parents, "Can I be part of that dance? Can I be part of this competition of singing or oratory, like poetry, whatever?" I always signed up and agreed to participate, and then my parents were like, "Oh, you did it again." So my mom is a musical person, so she would sing every single night to my brother and I,
Hmm.
to put us to bed in the dark, a cappella, no music. She didn't play an instrument. She just sang with a pretty
Hmm.
voice, and that's the beginning. Every single night, and then suddenly I'm 3, 4 years old, and I'm singing traditional Mexican songs, and my mom used to sing me at night, the traditional folk songs, like the equivalent of a Johnny Cash, let's say, like a different era, but
I was
similar
just
type
listening to
of.
Johnny Cash before this interview.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm a big Johnny Cash fan too, and that's why I always compare Johnny Cash and Jose Alfredo Jimenez is the equivalent
Okay.
image of folk music in Mexico that today all mariachi bands know his songs, and they are like the classics of Mexico. So yeah, that's how I started doing all this singing, almost like at the same time that I learned to speak, as we can think of with my family. When I asked them, when did I start singing? And they say, no, you almost started singing at the same time
Okay.
as you were learning to speak. So then later I moved to around 12. I got like I was in love with guitar, just seeing people playing guitar, and then it didn't stop. So, and here we are. And in a way that brought me to the north,
Yeah.
obviously to expand opportunities in music, and here we are.
Was there any kind of, I don't know, growing up where you saw that tension between like what these governments were trying to do to your land and just steamrolling over thousands of years of history and whatever. Was there any kind of like resentment or bitterness or anger like coming up north, like to, like you assholes, you know what I mean? Or how was your like your perception with that? Because that's interesting to me that Canada was a part of that
Yeah.
deal, but like you're rolling in Canada now.
No, that's a great
Yeah.
question because I never think of those perspectives. You know, like I
Yeah.
always see my suddenly I'm here and living a life. So it's always good to hear those questions. But I never thought of that way. Never thought it that way.
Really.
Like I was coming to the north with this idea that has been sold to us in Latin America that obviously there is great advancements in technology, and the movies, the American movies have influenced around the world. So the American films would also portray an image of like the best, and like films have a great impact in I guess around the world. Hollywood films, they would show you a world that is obviously
Yeah.
curated through a lens and in an image that is all curated and perfectly uh, painted.
Yeah.
So you kind of have that idea. Oh, I'm going to another place. So you don't really feel like, oh, what's going on with these people,
Right.
this
Right.
government or these systems. You don't immediately think that. And also, I was young, and also I was just like, okay, well, I'm just getting to know the world. I don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Now ask me, ask me today, and I'm like, okay, well, let's just start talking about facts that I
Yeah.
collected through the whole last few decades, like
I'd
history
I'd love to
facts.
hear your perception of this because I mean, you come from that worldview, and then you're here now, and you've been what, like 20 years, living in Toronto, I believe. Um,
Yeah, 18 to be exact, but it
18,
doesn't matter.
yes. So like, I don't know, just wrapping your arms around again back to that idea of like a yes and kind of the dualism of like multiple different realities and perspectives and stuff like that. There's so much going on. I mean, there's always been a lot going on if you read history books, but
Mhm.
as an artist, a communicator, someone who's wanting to advance their brand and get their voice out there and get their music heard and their films made, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, you know, it's interesting to think about like how do you advance as an individual and an artist, and also too you having the heart and the passion for justice and education. How have you navigated both of those worlds?
Yes. Have I navigated both worlds? Or
How?
how? Sorry.
How?
How?
How? Yeah.
Well, it is very, to be honest, it's still a puzzle to sort out every day because the
Yeah.
industries in the arts keep changing. So it's never ending. Like, okay, well, I figured it out in my mid 40s now. I've got it all.
Come
It's
on. You
ongoing.
haven't.
I think it's the new 25s. Yes, 45, the new
Mhm.
25.
That's what I'm telling
Um,
myself.
I've been honest since the day that I never got to the point to choose, but the days or the era of my life when I was like, I'm gonna do this kind of music. I don't want to do commercial music. Nothing wrong with it. I
Yeah.
just personally chose. I don't want to just build over what's already been done. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to just repeat the same subject with saying which we know which subject we're talking about. And I love love songs, but
Yeah.
very few. Like they have to be really good. So for me, commercial music was not my cup of tea since the
Yeah.
beginning. I
Yeah.
came from a rocking background, like rock background, and always had to have energy and had to have some like that emotion of like
Mhm.
force. Like let's do this with force. Let's do this with force. And I mean it in a good way, force, not forceful. So then I didn't fit in the frames of wanting to do music like with aesthetics. So like you gotta look this way in the commercial Mexican music
Right.
scene. You have to look
Right.
this way in a frame, and I didn't fit those frames. I couldn't see myself, and I wasn't gonna change anything. I accept who I am and how I look. So I just like, okay, well, it's okay. And I was always comfortable with that, first of all. I never wanted to be successfully commercially successful. Like, oh my God, I don't believe in much of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I do want my message to reach more people because that's important to me. And so living with the side that I want my message, or that I want to convey a message that is important to me, it's not always accepted in the commercial. It's not always appreciated in the commercial world that we live in.
Correct.
Very often.
Right.
So then it's like you have to, like, the challenge is, how do I find the balance where I'm being, productive I believe I'm being productive to a cause, to society, to make the world more equal, and to help raise this sense of comfort for society and the world. That people shouldn't be hungry, that people shouldn't be uneducated, that people shouldn't be afraid of a bomb or a drone falling on their roofs because of political conflicts they are not even part of, or they don't even have a say in those political conflicts between nations. That's what I'm like, okay, it's us humans doing these things. How come that human got to become that person making decisions on killing other people in other parts of the world? Why? So then that's where I'm like, okay, let's not forget about chipping in one little grain of sand, so that maybe in 20 years or in 200 years, we have raised our values as a society to stop doing these stupid things that we're doing as humans today, humans to humans.
Yeah.
So then that's where I'm like, okay, well, that's a deep thing, but at the same time, I cannot make it just reach the audience. So I have to figure out a way to make it digestible, because people get afraid of these conversations. Artists are like, oh, I'm going to lose my fans. Oh, I'm going to lose my audience. I just want to sell out. I just want to be like successful, and I deserve to live a good life and with money, and that's fine. It's totally understandable. I mean, I'm not born in a in a pad of easy life.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I've worked all the jobs. You don't need to ask me, but I've done all the odd jobs, labor to obtain a chance to do music. So I know that, but I also feel like it's important to stick to something that matters. In my case, this is what matters. And I keep trying to find the balance where I'm like, I need to live in this capitalistic world. I need to make it work. But at the same time, I cannot lose the essence of the important cause behind of what I've been doing, or what I've been trying to say for, now decades since I left my hometown. And it's been, it's been natural. I'm not fighting it. I'm not like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I think things little by little, they take their own course if you're honest. And I always feel like I'm terribly honest with myself to say, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to. Opportunities have come. You could be more commercial and successfully commercial. If you do this, if you do that, if you stop saying this, if you stop not talking about this and just focus on this pretty thing. I've actually have allowed those opportunities to pass in front of me consciously, knowing that it's going to have an impact on my financial situation, let's say. But I'm like, doesn't matter. I mean, I don't want to be that. My nature of being honest to myself, I think that maybe my enemy or maybe my best thing, but I am sticking to what has been working for my mind and my self as an artist today.
Yeah.
But I'm fully aware of what's going on out there. Like what more of the key elements to make successful music, to make successful commercial stuff. I know the formula. I can observe it easily. Do I choose to go there? I choose not to go there. Like, I know what the excitement of Drake music is about and how it's conformed musically. Like, with my eyes closed, I'm like, yeah, I know what's going on here. Should we try doing this? I'm like, no, no. Or the content, the lyrical content, which I'm sorry, I shouldn't be talking about Drake as a bad thing. I'm just saying
Yeah, I
some
got
people
you.
are moved by that music, and simply I'm not moved
Yeah.
in any of my in any way. So
Obviously, you work your ass off to build a brand and get your music out there and book shows and all of that. And that's what led me to find you was this post about canceling shows in the
hmm
US
hmm
after the ICE raids and stuff like that. And I just wanted to
yeah.
talk to you about that decision making process because, you know, some people were like, don't understand why you did it. Some people were applauding you. I instantly hit follow and was like, I'm going to follow this dude now. Like, this is my new friend. I'm really interested in
Right.
this. Um, but I think it's a very intentional decision to make as a creative when I have a slight idea of the amount of work that you put in and how much you love playing music because I put out a lot of work in this show, you know, and to say like, hey,
hmm
I'm not going to go do this. Tell me about that decision.
It was very troubling for me because
Hmm.
a lot of things were at risk and at stake. That for example, we some people were very supportive in their comments, and it was nice to see that support. It was eye opening to me that to see that a lot of people understood. I did not. First of all, I did not pose my thoughts thinking that that was going to be connecting with a lot of Americans, because I live in Canada, so I expected
Right.
if I expected something or reaction, it would be from Canadians who read my post, people that already follow my music. And it was a complete surprise to me that I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting a lot of messages, thousands of messages saying something about people coming from the US. I mean, messages from the US about the subject. And I was like, wow, suddenly the conversation is with an audience in the US. And obviously, the post was about me canceling a tour in the US. It taught me a lot more about how people are feeling about what I guess we being outside the United States, us not voting or taking part of the whole political system there. We observe and we have our opinion from outside.
Right.
In Mexico, people were looking up, okay, that's happening in the United States, in Canada. We have our opinions. It's also different than Mexico. And then to me, it's important to hear the actual people in the ground, like people in the United States commenting and giving me perspective that I don't have. I'm like, okay, well, considering all this is it's a good case, like a good study. But many of them didn't know where I was coming from, and immediately some jumped to say, "Oh yeah, well, you don't have the right documents." And I'm like, "Buddy, of course I have a visa. I have two visas, valid. I have documents that I have worked to obtain. I have paid thousands of dollars. I don't usually talk about what it
Yeah.
costs, but I needed to say those things, the amounts, for people to understand. Oh shit, this is not a light cancellation. No one throws $6,500 like just
Right.
in the garbage. Just like I don't want to go. You know what? Let's just cancel. No one, unless you're a billionaire. That's a hair
Right.
to you, not to artists. Doing those kind of decisions and investing time, years of building. I started going to the United States. I'll say it here so for people that can't understand. I started going to the United States with visas, to perform, to conferences, to do business, as legal as it gets, right?
Right.
We hear the rhetoric of, oh yeah, well, if you come here legally with your documents, you should be fine.
Hmm.
Okay, so I've been playing the game. I've been supporting. I pay. Nothing is free to enter with a visa to the United States. You pay to apply, you paid for the interview, all these layers, and I'm following the rules. Nothing on my records, nothing weird in my records. So finally, I started going to the US 10 years ago, going on and off, just for temporary visits, tour, never lived in the US. You invest all this time, you build connections, you build a bit of an infrastructure, where you're going to go with people. And then suddenly it's like, okay, well, I now have to throw it all out
Yeah.
because I won't be back because I don't agree. I don't want to support I don't want to make it sound like it's okay. I'm hiding, but I'm going with fear. I don't want to
Right.
normalize it, is the way to say. I
Right.
don't want to normalize, even though I have a document to enter lawfully and legally, but I don't want to normalize the injustices that are being applied to people like me, to a lot of
Right.
people that are Latinos, not necessarily Mexican. If you were treated like that in Europe, an American citizen like you goes to Europe and they say, you did all this work to get visas to live in Europe, to move there, to do not to move there. I wasn't moving to the U.S. Obviously, you feel like, well, you have this kind of resentment to a system that says, well, you said that I was going to be fine. You said I was going to be safe. You said you charged me. I
Yeah.
paid you. You charged me a service. You took my money. That's fine. Now let me go in safely, do my work. Suddenly we realize that there's no guarantee for me to feel safe in the United States while I'm traveling from A to B to do my work. And
Right.
people are is a I'm delivering a service to the American society coming to play, and someone pays for a ticket and they want that. Okay, it's an exchange. Simple,
Right.
simple. And suddenly I have the fear of being stopped anywhere that I'm just profiled, you know, and because the laws allowed ICE to profile people of my phenotype. So it doesn't matter if I have a visa, if I have a document, if it doesn't matter. It's just randomness, like free randomness. You come, you go into the detention center. So then how do you feel? Like, and then realizing that it's unsure, everything is uncertain about what happens in the ICE detention centers today. It proves today, as of June 12th, it proved that I was right when I was making my decision of canceling my tour in January for the rest of the year. Like, I'm not coming back to the United States because it's not safe, simply. No one can tell me, oh, you're overreacting. Because some people said that in comments. Oh, you're just overreacting. Be a man. And I'm like, buddy, this is not about.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah,
What do you do now with this? You have this history of seeing people in a government at conflict with each other, and then now you see this going on. How has this like shifted where you go artistically or even from like a business perspective?
yeah. Well, the business perspectives, the business loss, the investment of time and years and traveling to
Yeah.
perform, tour, conferences, you build something. An artist needs to build it over time. There's
Right.
no, I mean,
Right.
unless you're a one-hit wonder that you go explode one day. Not my case, neither my desire. But I've been investing time and money and efforts um, over years in the U.S. as a market that, for example, for me is super important because we have also a great Latin community,
Yeah.
American-born Latinos who obviously need to hear music that represents them, and the Latin music in the United States is huge. It's a huge
Yeah.
industry. So then I see the reality. I'm like, okay, Canada is limited, has limited options or reach because it's a smaller population of about 40 million people, and the United States is 360 million people. So, it's almost 10 times
Right.
more, 10 times almost the size of audience. And there are 68 million people who are Latinos in the United States, 18% of the population of the American population is Latinos, larger than Afro Americans, in fact. And so, given those facts, I'm like, I have to go play in the United States as a
Uh-huh.
Mexican artist who mostly sings in Spanish. I also sing in English, but I mostly have
Right.
written my work and my songs in the most natural way for me to speak. To make the music, to record it is in Spanish. So, and then suddenly having to stop thinking of those plans that I've been investing for years. It's obviously you're like, what? That market is not going to happen, at least, who knows, until, I don't know, a couple of years, let's say. And with that, type of administration that is more prohibitive than welcoming, no one can do much about it. Look at what we're having today with the World Cup referee who's coming to be a referee at an international game, and he was rejected because he's African.
I
I'm
didn't know that
like,
happened. Jesus.
yeah, it just happened yesterday or before yesterday, as we speak, and he's got all the, I mean, credentials,
Yeah.
professional credibility. Is FIFA advocating for this guy? He's one of our referees. We need him. No, no, no. We don't let him in for X reason. And those are like the questions. I mean, if a guy like that comes back, I mean, backed by FIFA, what guarantees do I have? Me, guy, singer
Right.
songwriter from based in Toronto, Mexican singer songwriter. It's so arbitrary that I'm like, I'm not gonna be on the line, on front of the line to expect what happens if they want to treat me fairly or not. Whether I have a visa, whether I
Right.
have two visas, doesn't matter. And what we saw when we see the, I mean, I guess some people, I was shocked that some people thought I was overreacting when I said, after the killings of the two American citizens, American born and raised white Americans, are killed in Minneapolis that way, as
Yep.
we saw it all. Some people seem to have not seen it. How? I don't know how they missed it, but the
You
world
choose
saw
to
it,
see what you want to see.
right?
Yeah.
So then they're still like, "Oh, you're overreacting over nothing," and I'm like, "Well, buddy, like if you see that your own fellow Americans are being killed, murdered in front of people openly, what do you expect that I would feel that I have more protection?
Right.
Neither from
Right.
Mexico or Canada. I am on my own. So I choose my gut to tell me, listen to my gut, and my gut said, don't go. Throw it all away. Throw the contracts, throw the offers, the signed contracts. They obviously are paid professional gigs. They're not a bar gig necessarily. Not that a bar is a bad place to work, but it's not necessarily it's not as casual that you have performing arts centers. They have sold tickets. They're theaters or performing arts centers. They need to fulfill the engagement, and suddenly you have to cancel. And I lost bookings, flights, hotels. It was not non-refundable. I
What's
as
it do to your
artists we
heart? How does that,
oh my god.
how do you deal with that as just like you're a human who's, you love your
Mhm.
music and you love your fans, like your heart. I'm just curious because a big part of what we do is carrying hope, I would say,
Mhm.
and I know you got hope
Yeah,
in you.
yeah, it's so hard to make it in these days, in this era. It's perhaps people that are not in this industry or in any artistic form trying to live from it might find it hard to say, okay, well, just cancel your tour, it's fine. But if you've lived a whole life, I have lived my whole life doing this, literally. I've done other kind of jobs to make my music career a moment of, okay, sustaining myself. Yes, I did labor work, I did all this stuff, but I never saw it as a secondary option. I always music was this thing,
Yeah.
and it did take off at a point that it was just my sole profession job. That's it. Very grateful for that in my life. But then when you have to reduce all these opportunities, there are a building for years, and then you get to the top and you're starting to be like, okay,
Yeah.
more serious. Then it's like, nope, you can't pass this way. Why? Because it's not safe for you. Why? Because of your phenotype. Why? Because someone says that your phenotype is not welcome here. It's a really, like, sorry to use it, but it really fucks up with your mind.
Yeah.
And I have a strong mind in that regard, that I don't get like, oh, diminished by someone not letting me in a country or something. I don't. But
Yeah.
I know that it's like, like, imagine you go into a country and suddenly you're not welcome, and you're like, ooh, like, ostracized. Oh, there's an American going there right now. It's just weird. It's a human, you know, mindfuck. So sorry for that.
No, it's valid, and I'm glad. I think that's the only term you can use, because I
Yeah.
think it points to, we pride ourselves in being so progressive and advanced. And we have, we as the collective
Hmm.
have made advancements in certain areas, but I think stuff like this can happen and we realize how far we still have to go and how still unconscious bias or conscious bias rules so much of our day-to-day lives and our governments and our practices, and just like the idea of like treating people with dignity and respect. We would all say like, oh yeah, we agree with that, but our actions and our laws and the way we advocate or don't advocate point otherwise. And I know this is a little bit of a harsh transition, but I think it's, still in the same vein that you spent the past few years too doing research, and you're kind of entering into another stage of your creative career where you're getting into filmmaking and creating a documentary, I believe.
Hmm. Not that you're wrong. I just want to make sure that I don't give myself titles that I haven't earned in time. But I mean, I'm not a documentarian, but I've been documenting, not as a profession. I've been documenting research
Then that's a
regarding.
documentary. I'm telling you, you're a filmmaker. I hate to tell you. If you're
Okay,
filming,
okay, yes, I've filmed and I
okay.
film still. I think that it's important. Just, I mean, I like to make sure that people don't
I
feel like,
know.
okay,
I
well,
know.
their professions, their full professions are toyed with, but
Yeah.
but anyway. So I want to say that I had the opportunity to start filming and to do interviews regarding the subject of the migrant workers, my fellow Mexicans that have come to the north to work seasonally sometimes. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they go back and forth. Sometimes they do it obviously with a program designed by governments in both Canada and the United States. Both governments have taken advantage of Mexico offering labor that, first of all, they're extremely experienced and the most experienced folks to work the field, which never is put in the equation of what are these folks doing here. They
Yeah.
bring food to your kids and all the way to your great grandparents. I mean, not just you, us in
Right.
Canada. And people forget that. So people forget where things come from, that they didn't just arrive and appear at the store, at the beautiful, well lit up supermarket that looks like, oh, what a beautiful tomato. They think it just came, boom, magically. So that's my one of my causes is to raise the awareness that most folks around me in Canada, first of all, I realized they had no clue. Most of them had no clue who is the person that actually picks their fruits, their vegetables that are sold beautifully in an organic market, highly priced in an organic market, hip market in Toronto or in New York or in LA or in San Francisco. And so then I'm like, how come you don't even know? Like, how come people don't have a clue who are the ones being uh, exploited many times and exploited, enslaved? I have no issue saying it's what's my term? I've given it before. Well, it's almost like it's almost like legalized slavery today, because with the exchange of money that those people get to work, but in the conditions that they live in, living conditions, they are like deplorable, really, really inhumane.
Mm.
We could spend another show on this. We could spend a whole hour on this. It's uh, it's no different than being a slave, but you're officially being paid bad rates, not even minimum as the society demands. No, this is really bad, and no, really bad living conditions, and it happens across Canada, and it happens across the United States, and most people don't want to see that. Most people don't want to acknowledge that without that labor, the economy would not be in the same place also. The economy would be heavily impacted because those folks work really hard for almost like peanuts in comparison to what other people make. And then they, in the United States, they pay taxes. I'm not sure if it's 92 or 90 billion, but it's over $90 billion generated
Jesus.
from all those workers, the farm workers. I have to triple check that it's 92 versus 90, but I know it's $90 billion over. And so they contribute a lot, not only with their lives, they make sacrifices. They also are there as humans. They also have families that they leave behind, and anyone would claim, well, they're being paid because they're making money. Well, it's not really like that easy answer because, again, the living conditions, the sacrifices, the bad pay. At the end of the day, it's someone living a life they should be living a dignified life, even though if they work 16 hours a day, everyone in this world, not just Mexican farm workers, not Americans, everyone should live a dignified life for their efforts, for their time, for their sacrifices of not being around with their kids, of not being around with their families. And also the crazy labor work, like their backs, Jesus, like their knees working 16 hours picking up onions. I have learned from them. I'm not just assuming. I learned from them how heavy it is to work 12, 16 hours. And they're like, oh my God, we got to do onions today. Onions that we are just like, ooh, chopping nice onions. People drag themselves along the line for hours to get those onions and to pack them into sacks. And how much they get paid? $5 an hour, $8 an hour. Like in the sun, in the rain, in the cold. It's insane. And then people have like consequences in their bodies. And then they don't have a doctor system to go to. They don't have insurance. They don't have medical care, protection. So who is so inhumane to say that is fine? That is okay. Let it be. Let it continue the same way. So I know that people need to work. Everyone needs to work. But I think that everybody, that's why we have unions. So some humans in some systems are totally cool acknowledging that, oh, human rights are needed, labor rights are needed, so let's just build unions and strengthen ourselves. But they forget about that sector that is one of the most important sectors in society, food. Who doesn't love food? Like whether you're blue, red, political views, different, whatever you want, religion, doesn't matter. You need to eat tasty and good food. I could go on because then you see industries benefiting big money, making profit about the food industry. We know it.
Right.
Billionaires making so much money from that industry, but the people that are at the bottom of the whole pyramid are like the little, ants doing the labor. But those are the actual like foundation for that pyramid to stand up. The food pyramid or the food industry today. Restaurants in major cities charging $100, $200 a plate because they present tomatoes nicely and present food nicely, vegetables. And how much are the people that work 16 hours a day? How they live? They live in squads, 16 people, 14 people, and sometimes 4 people if they're lucky. I've seen them all. I've heard all of the different combinations of living conditions. I've heard from folks over the years. This is me for 10 years. I've been communicating with farms, going to farm. It's 2014 I started going to perform just for the migrant workers on a Sunday evening. And that's how it all started. Like I started going to visit one farm. Somebody invited me. I played music. We had tacos they cook for me on a Sunday evening. The one day they rest. The one day they have a moment to feel human. And then the rest of the week is just hard labor, non-stop. And, you see grown men 40, 50, 60, 70. The oldest one is a sweet man who was 75 years old in Canada, worked 35 years in Canada, dedicated his energy every single year he came to work, 10, maybe 10 months a year. And he's still working at 75. He was working, and his story was heavy to hear about his children, 5 children growing up with a father. He's always away. Super sad stories you hear from the parents being away 30 years. So you have all this grown man living a life in a room. Imagine a regular North American home. In a room, sometimes they stack up beds, bunk beds of 4 on different angles, and they have I've heard up to 16 people. In my early visits to the farms, I saw people that told me, yeah, we'll live in a room with 3 bunk beds or 4 bunk beds of 3, so that's 12 people in one bedroom, one bathroom to share among 12. They have to line up to go to the washroom in the morning, and sometimes they say, if you didn't catch the line to go to the washroom early in the morning, then you have to go to work and you have to figure out. Like sometimes you don't eat, sometimes there's not enough food, sometimes they don't let you. I have it documented. It's not like I'm paraphrasing people saying sometimes they don't let us buy food outside, and they don't allow us to cook our own meals. So they only give us literally verbatim 4 taquitos. That's what I have in my mind. 4 taquitos. 4 taquitos for the day. The farmer gives them, here's your meal, your official meal. And the guy at the farmer is telling me, yeah, 4 taquitos. That's our meal for the day after we worked 12 hours in the sun, in the ground, picking up buckets of fruit and shit. And that's how they expect that they will survive. And they don't allow them. There's no kitchen in the home. There's no kitchen. They have to buy their own little plate, and illegally they have to bring their own plate into the house to cook or to make some coffee. It's like, oh my God. And nothing.
Legalized slavery, like you said.
It is. And a lot of people fight for rights or human rights, but when it's convenient, they take the fight. Oh, let's fight for this. Let's protect our rights. Let's protect our rich people's rights, but let's not worry about anybody else that is not rich. And that's the thing that we have still around the world. It's a human condition that we're still struggling with. The pleasure some people have in their minds to know that they're superior than others because of money, not because at a human level, it's because of money. Some people inherit it, some people earned it, and then they still feel that they need to look down to some other humans that serve them. And I struggle with that. I'm like, why? How is it really possible that we can change that in the world? Like one day, superior humans will be like, hey, I can be billionaire, but I still will treat you and help the other society or humans to become equal. I started a music festival. I founded an amalgamation of a celebration for the migrant workers. I thought of this for years. 10 years ago, I started thinking, what if I do this dinner, one farm dinner night for them? What if I did it bigger, and then we bring an audience, and then we celebrate this cause of the migrant workers that bring the food to our tables. And then we tell the media, and then we officially announce it as a public event. We have to do it somewhere. And 10 years went by, and then finally in the pandemic, 7, 8 years. And then in the pandemic, when we had a little extra time that I wasn't touring and moving like crazy, traveling, that's when I was like, I brought it up to a community in Toronto, and I said, why don't we do this plan? I've been doing it in small chunks every year. I go to a farm, and I know that people need this. And that's how I started this festival that now is the 5th year that I'm going to present it. And now we get support from organizations like the Government of Canada. It's funded by the Government of Canada, the Federal Government of Canada. So, and that's how I've been able to elevate this experience where I bring now uh, food, traditional food, indigenous chefs to share their traditions from not only Canada, not only Mexico or the US, but also all the way to as far as Chile and Argentina that we've had. And that's my way to say, hey, maybe in the audience, 300 people that come to this festival, they will get it, that this is something that we should continue doing, acknowledging, and maybe their kids are the ones who are going to do the action that will change those
Mhm.
laws in the future, you know? In that crowd, I know, I'm a dreamer. There might be a kid who is 10 years old now who loves this experience, and in 40 years, he'll be the mayor of a town and say, you know what? What about those folks that I've known for years that they bring so much to our society?
Yeah.
How about we offer them medical care in Canada? It's supposed to be a universal healthcare. So, but those guys are not being provided
Right.
healthcare.
Right.
It's where I'm like, how do I make the difference? Sometimes it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be without stress because organizing a festival, holy, it's a lot of stress.
First of all, I want to just acknowledge you for thank you for your time and your energy to come and share your story and your experience and your work with my community. Thank you for the way you're showing up on the internet and the way that you're using your voice and, seeing a problem and using what God put in your hands to be a solution and to see those workers and to give them an opportunity to feel loved and supported. Like, hats off to you. I don't wear a hat, but
Thank
if I
you.
did, hats off to you, man.
Mhm.
Like, it's so
Thank
badass.
you.
Respect it. Respect.
Thank you.
But for my final question, I want to give folks an opportunity to connect with you. What would be the one thing you would want them to go do if they want to learn more about your work?
Well, I think that they could probably just connect through the main media or platform I use, where I tend to share a lot of things, a lot of my passions. Very easy to find me on social media like Instagram.
I'll put that
Yeah.
in the show notes. Very last question. If you had one action that you would ask folks to take based off of what we just talked about? It's a big ass question, but if you
No,
would
no, no.
guide folks to one thing that you would
Yeah.
encourage them to do, what would that be?
I just brought up the subject of the migrant workers, and I know that an individual, including me, is a single cell in the big world or the big system. Is hard to see the impact right away, even if you're like working
Yeah.
on the change every day. It's gonna be hard, and probably you won't last in your struggle to change the system. I think that the most important thing for me is um, that one should be more interested in looking not only the easy media or easy to eat and digest information. I think that we've become very comfortable with commodified entertainment and everything is
Mhm.
commodified. So music, people don't search, people don't want to know more. It's just like, well, I pay for a service, suggest me music, for example. Same, I pay for this, suggest me entertainment, Netflix. What about going to, let me go find out who this director is and what the amount of work that he did before Netflix was on. Like, I'm just saying curiosity, I guess it comes down to
Yeah.
the word curiosity. And my curiosity is one of my I'm grateful for life. It gave me so much curiosity to move me enough to go and figure out and dig more and tickle things more than usual. Keep curiosity alive. Keep yourself
Yeah.
investi- investigative is the word?
Yeah. Yeah.
Investigative. Because then the more knowledge that we acquire, and I don't mean knowledge you have to go to a university to acquire it, only the only place is a school. I believe I'm very self-taught in many ways, languages and stuff like that. I love to learn. I think that you can acquire so much knowledge after you've researched enough, you'll have a
Mhm.
better foundation to your truth.
Yes.
Things do change for the better. I have seen it. It took me years to believe that fighting for things or causes would actually change for the better. And I am living it right now. I'm living it right now with the actual political betterment in Mexico with the first female president. All in all, I think that if you want to make an impact, it's important to be informed for when the time comes, you're going to have power in your vote, you know, because it's hard. It's hard, honestly. It's hard to know what's right and wrong. And with this misinformation era of misinformation, we don't know. That's what the song talks about. My song, No Kings Around.
Which is a jam, dude.
My latest song, I start with that. We don't know. We know with so many views of lies, media, social media, we don't know. It's hard to know. With AI, it's like, now how do I know this video is real? Or how do I know that this is the politician that I followed? He's not doing this terrible thing on a AI video.
Yeah.
So we have to be more equipped than ever. We have to be more equipped to be actually able to discern what's truth, what's wrong, it's hard, but I think we have to keep equipping ourselves.
Thank you for today. This is incredible.
We could talk. I mean, I could go on forever too.